Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope everything's good wherever you are. Salman, I made a video. I wanted to get your opinion about McKinson and Ortiz. And I actually said I had the fight 4-3. We're getting straight into it. Smash the like button. I've got Salman here. And you came up to me just about a couple of hours ago and you said, I didn't think the fight was close. And a lot of people in my comment section have disagreed with me about the fight being close. They actually think it was a one-sided fight. I've only watched the fight once. I watched it live. I watched it. I watched it in the morning when 4 o'clock our time. That's when we watch the American fights because they're late in the morning. I didn't watch the fight after that. I didn't watch it again. Maybe I have to, going off what people are saying in the comment section. But Vergil Ortiz, getting the win in the end, stopping McKinson. I still stand by the fact from what I saw, again, I'll have to go watch it again possibly. I still stand by the fact that I gave McKinson 3 rounds. I gave him the first one, which the commentator on DAZN gave him. And I believe the commentator on DAZN gave him the 6th round as well. And then the 7th round, I felt he won that one as well. I think it was very close. I think Ortiz was missing a lot of punches. So when people are saying that they disagree with me, I don't think there was a lot in it. And like I said, the commentator on DAZN gave him 2 rounds. He gave him 2 rounds. So effectively, I gave him 1 more round than what the commentator actually gave him. But I'm not going off what the commentator gave him anyway. I actually think he won the 1st round, and because the commentator, I don't believe, gave him the 7th round, which I felt he won as well. The fact that, firstly, I want to give a shout out to Sign Cutter, who actually said, I saw your comment and you said, Imran, this is the first time that I disagree with you. And you said that everyone else is disagreeing with you. The fact that everybody else is disagreeing with me, that's fair enough. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Boxing is a very subjective sport. I will also put this out there that a lot of people, probably 90% of people disagree with me about Canelo winning the 2nd fight against Golovkin. But I'll still stick by that and say that Canelo won the 2nd fight against Golovkin, even though the vast majority of pundits, the vast majority of media, the vast majority of fans had Golovkin winning both fights. Right? And I'm talking majority that I speak to. So it's an opinion. And what I saw at that time, I saw, it's not like, when I said there was a momentum shift, what I meant by that is that I felt like McKinson was getting into more of a groove. I felt like McKinson was getting more confident, more comfortable. Maybe he was putting on a poker face. But I felt like McKinson was doing some good work, in the 6th and 7th round. I do think he was getting into his groove. Now, I'll have to probably go and watch it again, going off your comments. But to say that McKinson didn't even win a round, I didn't think Ortiz was that dominant. But maybe you saw it differently, Salman. What did you think?
Yeah, so maybe if he even did win 1 or 2 rounds, even the rounds he probably did win weren't that convincing. They were nip and tuck rounds. When I say that, obviously, I didn't believe the fight was close. It was McKinson wasn't boxing that great and he was getting hit a lot. Although, yeah, Ortiz was missing, but he was also hitting him a lot. If you look at it, he was bossed up in that fight. And obviously, Ortiz got McKinson headbutted Ortiz.
But apart from that 8th round where he hurt him, McKinson was never in trouble. Never looked like McKinson.
No, it didn't look like he was going to go down, but the thing is, it was only a matter of time. He was getting, basically, Vergil Ortiz's power punches were wearing him down. And I always thought that, the reason why he survived till the 9th round, because he wasn't willing, he engaged at times, but he was on his back foot. And he was just trying to be awkward. Or otherwise, I personally think if he stood there and fought, I think Vergil Ortiz would have got him out of there earlier. But the thing is, McKinson wasn't doing enough to win the rounds. It was like he was just a guy on his bike, but like a punch bag, really. He wasn't going to win the fight like that. He wasn't a good enough. His boxing ability was not good enough to win the fight. He wasn't slick enough. He wasn't making Ortiz miss enough, and Ortiz was just too relentless. And it was, even the rounds he may have won, they weren't very convincing. Where, oh yeah, he schooled him that, right? It was never like that. Ortiz was always landing hellacious punches to his body, and yeah, they weren't affecting him early on, but it affected that those obviously he was banking those shots, and then it affected him later on in the fight, and he stopped him in the 8th round. And as soon as he hit him to the body, I knew the fight was over at that point. As soon as he went down the first time, I knew the fight was pretty much over, because you know, when you get hit with a body shot like that, the wind's out of you. It's just a matter of time.
Apparently, I think he'd done his hip.
But that would have been because of Ortiz pummeling him in. Ortiz made that happen because Ortiz is so vicious. Ortiz really was winning that fight. You would have won it either way.
I'm not saying I don't think even in the video that I made that I ever said that I think McKinson was going to win the fight. The point I'm trying to say is that I actually thought that McKinson was getting into the fight. I thought he was doing well. Look, who would have thought that McKinson would have gone that many rounds with him? McKinson was, in my opinion, doing some good work in there.
I don't think he did any good work, to be honest.
You don't think he did anything in that fight?
Nothing really impressed me to the extent where I thought, wow, like, yeah, he went a few more rounds than any of the other guys, but you know, he didn't hurt him. He didn't have no power, right? And it seems like if he's going to fight like this against anyone that does have power and is relentless, there's a problem there. There's a massive weakness for McKinson, because if he fights anyone else similar to Virgil Ortiz, it's going to be an issue at the top level.
I did say that in my video. I did say that the fact that he hasn't got no power, he's probably going to come up short against anyone.
Plus, his boxing ability isn't that great. Where just Mayweather didn't have much power, but the point is, his boxing ability was so good.
Mayweather had more power than that, but the point is that
more power than that, but not at the end of his career. He was just a boxer, but that's because his boxing ability was far superior than a lot of these guys. Like, even if you look at it like Billy Joe, for example, when he fought Canelo. Right, people thought his boxing ability was going to be so superior where he'd be able to neutralize Canelo without having a punch. But, you know, it wasn't the case. McKinson, same thing. He wasn't able, you can't close the gap if you ain't got...
Salman, let's say this then. Virgil Ortiz and Terence Crawford. Now, that's a great fight. That's a dangerous fight for both guys. You know, Virgil Ortiz is a monster.
I personally think, you know, you got to take into consideration, right, that Kavalauskas hurt Terence Crawford. And I personally think Virgil Ortiz is young and he's hungry and he's more of a vicious fighter than Kavalauskas. I don't think that would be a walk in the park for Terence Crawford. I think he'd win the fight, but it's not going to be easy.
Some people think Ortiz knocks Crawford out.
I don't know about that. Crawford's tough. To knock him out, he'd have to do something that no one else has been able to do. But nevertheless, Virgil Ortiz is very vicious, but
Kavalauskas also hurt Virgil Ortiz.
So there you go then, and we know, and you got to realise Virgil Ortiz hasn't yet fought a world-class welterweight, whereas Terence Crawford has. And Sean Porter, and he knocked him out, and he was the first one to ever knock out Sean Porter. So the thing is, at the end of the day, you have to favour Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is a multi-division world champion. Virgil Ortiz isn't a world champion. So you have to take all these things into consideration. I don't think it'd be an easy night's work for Crawford, but I do think Crawford's boxing ability, he'd be able to adjust, and Virgil Ortiz has a lot more flaws. And I think someone like Terence Crawford's too smart, and he'd be able to pick it. You know, he'd be able to pick. I think he'd pick him apart, to be honest. But yeah, you know, everyone can see the flaws in Virgil Ortiz. There's no doubt about it. He gets hit a lot, and against a big puncher, it could be curtains. I'm being honest. Against a big puncher or someone that's relentless as him, how's he gonna? If he's getting hurt, if Kavalauskas could be a bit more relentless, how do you know how that fight would have ended up? You know, he got hurt by Kavalauskas. Crawford got hurt by Kavalauskas, but you know, we'll have to see.
Salman, I wanted to ask you about Bernard Hopkins' comments about Canelo Golovkin. He thinks that Canelo will batter Golovkin and knock him out in 6 or 7 rounds. Salman, there's been a lot of debate about Canelo and Golovkin in terms of, will Canelo Alvarez knock Golovkin out? Will Canelo be too strong? How do you see that fight playing out?
I personally think that Canelo will win the fight. I've always said it since that fight. I don't care if Canelo lost to Bivol. That's not the reason why I've swayed my opinion. The reason why I think Canelo wins is because I just think at this point, he's obviously at the peak. He's in the peak of his life. He's going to be...
He's in the peak of his life, but he got beat by Bivol. And Bivol would have knocked his confidence for 6. Let's be brutally honest. That would definitely have an effect a little bit.
I just think he's going to be, at this point of Golovkin's career, I think he'll be too much. I just think that if it's the same Golovkin that fought Murata, he's not going to beat Canelo. Let's be honest. If you think he's going to beat Canelo based on that performance, unless he ups his game to something we've not seen over the last.
But he's going to be better. He's going to be better. He didn't need to be. He didn't need to be great.
I don't think. I still think. I think Canelo's got. Canelo wants it more, I think, than Golovkin. Golovkin's obviously putting on a poker face.
I disagree. I think Golovkin wants this more. Golovkin's
not really showing it.
What do you mean?
I just think Canelo wants it more. As Golovkin said, I'm here just to, I'm here to fight. And Canelo wants to rip his soul out in this fight. I don't think Golovkin wants
Golovkin doesn't show a lot of, let's be honest, McGregor wanted it more against Khabib. McGregor wanted it more.
I don't think so. He wanted it more than Khabib.
He did. You could tell the way he was talking. He was talking a big game. Just because somebody's talking, that don't mean that they don't want it. Golovkin never talks a lot. When have you ever seen Golovkin talk a big game? He comes from Eastern Europe. They don't talk a lot. That's just the way they are. Khabib don't talk a lot. That don't mean that they don't want it. They want it.
No, they want it, but I just don't believe that Golovkin's going to be able to give in this fight more than what Canelo's going to be able to give. If it was, then he would have won the second fight, which he didn't. And that was in his prime.
But again, a lot of people think he did win the second fight.
He won the first fight, he didn't win the second fight. I would have given it was close, but Canelo won by at least 1 or 2 rounds in that fight. Listen, I'm fair. Golovkin won the first fight, Canelo won the second fight. All these guys that come out and say, oh no, Golovkin won both, that's nonsense.
But Salman, what you've got to understand,
the first fight was a robbery.
Salman, what you've got to understand is, it's not 1 or 2 people. We're talking about majority think that Canelo lost both those fights. Yeah? A lot of the people that actually say that Canelo won the second fight are generally his fans. Majority of I don't know whether it's just the fact that bias because people thought Golovkin won the second one, but majority of the people that
I know, but let's not look at it like that. If someone's a fan, then they're gonna have an agenda. But my point is, I don't really care. Like, I don't really support Canelo or Golovkin, so I'm not gonna be biased. So my opinion is more valid than someone that's a fanboy or someone. You got to realize a lot of these pundits have their favorite, so they're gonna speak. It's like, for example, Johnny Nelson likes Anthony Joshua. So he's going to speak in favour of Anthony Joshua at all points. Even if he knows Joshua's going to lose, he's always going to speak in favour. I'm not going to speak in favour. I'm just going to say it how it is. I think Golovkin won the first fight, and I think he deserved the first fight, and I think he got robbed. And I think in the second fight, I think Canelo won. If it was a draw, I wouldn't have said it was a robbery. Or if Golovkin won by 1, I wouldn't have said it was a robbery, because it wouldn't have been a robbery. But, at the end of the day, I personally thought in my heart that Canelo just did enough to win the fight, and that's just me being. And I personally think this third fight will be more conclusive. I don't know whether he'll get the stoppage, but I think this time he'll make it more conclusive on who the actual winner is. Because I just don't think, with because Golovkin's aged now, I just don't think with the age that's going to have any. It's not going to have any benefits in this fight. It's not going to come and it'll be a new rejuvenated Golovkin against Canelo. As soon as Canelo starts walking him down and chucking those hellacious body shots, it's going to be really difficult. Really, really difficult. And let's see what Golovkin's got to give. If Golovkin can pull this off, this would be one of the biggest at the age of 40. You got to realize Bivol was 31 years old. He was young, fresh in his prime, and way bigger than Canelo. Golovkin ain't going to be way bigger than Canelo. So they're similar height, it's the same size. So if Canelo will probably be more, bigger because he's been fighting at heavier weights than Golovkin. So now he's naturally a bigger guy. So let's see. At that point, when Canelo fought Golovkin the first 2 times, Canelo moved up from 154 to fight. Now Canelo's not going to be moving up. Canelo, that's his natural weight now.
Could we get a Pacquiao-Marquez moment?
What, where Golovkin that can happen in any fight. Where one person just lands a, lucky shot and you just get knocked out cold. That can happen. That can happen in any fight, but I don't think so. Very unlikely, let's be honest. Most fights that doesn't happen.
Who would have thought that Pacquiao would have got knocked out by 1
No, it can happen, but it's not the percentage of that happening. How many big fights does that happen where you just get hit with a big shot and that's it, you're out? Getting these top competitive fights, in competitive fights.
Well, Marquez Pacquiao was competitive.
No, but what my point is that in most competitive fights, it's nip and tuck, you know? It's nip and tuck most of the time in competitive fights. You're not going to just land a punch, rendered cold, and that's it. It can happen. It's a boxing game, but it's not. It's very unlikely. I don't see one of these guys just landing one, that's it, fight over. Unless it's an absolute, just, it hits her in the right spot, basically. Marquez obviously hit Pacquiao on the right spot, and he just knocked him out cold.
We have to wait and see then, guys. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'd love to know your opinion, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.